And so the business was primarily like vintage racing. Yeah, taking people racing. But then while I was doing that, then people wanted, you know, cool cars. So that kind of leads me to this car because in 97, so I got married in 1996, and my wife and I were like, you know, let's build something that, you know, is for us, that we're never going to get rid of, and kind of an adventure car, but also to kind of show, you know, what we're capable of. Yeah. And so this was a personal project that Amy and I did together, and the goal was to build the car and take it to Monterey for Porsche's 50th anniversary and kind of do something different because I had already built, you know, some Outlaw cars, but you know, my grandfather taught me, you know, like metal shaping and, you know, redesigning stuff. And so I wanted to do something that was a little bit more, you know, like a custom car, hot rod style. Absolutely. So took a cabriolet, leaned the nose back, flattened out the hood, leaned the windshield back, rolled the rockers under. So if you look at the car, like the rockers roll under on the car.
That's beautiful.
Raise the wheel arches, and then kind of lengthen the tail. But in doing all that, I was like, oh, I can't leave it just totally, you know, stock. So there was an engine that a guy had built that we were running in one of our race cars, and it was a prototype engine, taking a 6-cylinder 911 and turning it into a 4. And so I'm like, oh, that's an engine I got to put in it. So that was the first engine that a guy, Dean Palopoulos, built that was a cut down 4-cylinder 911. So this has the prototype of that.
This is the very first.
The very first, 4-cylinder 911 that Dean Palopoulos did. And then it's got like 944 turbo aluminum trailing arms and turbo S brakes and, you know, all kinds of stuff. And then, so my goal was just, you know, build something a little different and use as many Porsche parts from different generations of cars as possible. Like the wheels are from a 93 RS America. They were the Space Saver spare wheel.
Perfect. Really? That's so cool.
Yeah, so that's actually the spare wheel. That's why there's 2 valve stems. There's,
look at that.
When they do them, you know, they set it up so you can add air and extract air. Yeah. So there's a, you know, because you got to suck the Space Saver back down. So one of the valve stems is a little bit different. So we built the car and then found out that my wife we were building it and found out that she was pregnant with Zane, and that now we're going to be there's going to be 3 of us taking this little road trip. And so Zane was born in June. We finished the car in August, and you'll see a trailer hitch sticking out the back. We wanted to set it up so that we could tow a little trailer. So we had this little aluminum camp trailer that we towed, and we went to Monterey for the historics and the 50th anniversary, and then we did this 5,000-mile road trip around the western U.S.
Rod, can you pull the child seat out?
So, you know, we knew that we had to match his seat. So I went in. I think my wife was driving at the time. She had a Honda Civic. Yeah. And I pulled the little baby seat out, his little Jerry baby seat out of the back of the Civic, and I didn't even tell Amy about it, and put it on the bench, and we upholstered it to match the others. And I said, honey, what do you think of the baby seat? She goes, that's great, but what am I supposed to use every day? So, but we upholstered it and set it up so that
it's perfect.
We set it up so it would go sideways. I get it. Yeah. These days you have to be, you know, rear facing, but yeah, we set it up so it would go sideways, and then I made her seat in the passenger side recline so she could tend to Zane while we were driving. Yeah. And then we knew it was going to be hot, so we didn't want to cook our baby. So we on the passenger rear seat, I put some tie downs, and I took a little ice chest and set it up so we could drop a block of ice in it with louvers on one side and a fan. And so we would just blow cold air on him while we were driving. I've got a picture of us. It was kind of end of August, and we were driving through Death Valley. It was 118 degrees. And you can see I've got it parked in the middle of the desert. Yeah. Got sunscreens in the back, and you know, so I'm glad we did the AC setup because otherwise,
he was just asleep.
Yeah, he was. Well, the car would just hum him to sleep, and even to this day, I mean, he's almost 25 now. Yeah. He's out working in the shop, but it's like you get in the car and the kid just immediately goes to sleep. So I think that, you know, we kind of trained him because this thing just, you know, hummed him to sleep while we were driving. So Porsche showed up to Le Mans in 1951 with 2 cars, the number 46 car and the 47 car. Yep. The 47 car crashed in night practice. Yep. The driver said that they were having trouble seeing the apexes. You know, 6-volt lights are super dim. Yep. You've got headlight grills on them that, distort the light. And there's no track lighting, right? In 51, it's like driving in the dark. And it was also raining. So there was just, everything was going against them. But they crashed the number 47 car in night practice. So they only started the race with this car. And so they did a number of things to try to, light the car up a little bit better, do some things like on the rear light, or on the rear number, they put 2 lights on it to light that up so that when it went through timing and scoring, they could actually score the car correctly. But in order to get the fog lights to angle down and kind of move over, they ran out of mechanical, adjustment. There was just no way to get that light where it needed to be. So one of the mechanics took a piece of rubber hose, loosened the light up, because these things basically have a mounting point and then they rest up against the body, but loosened the light up, jammed the rubber in there, and then just tightened it up against the rubber. So it gave this thing probably another 5 degrees of adjustment. You can see it's angled down and out. And so that piece of hose was on there. And so when we went to Pebble Beach, I'm not really a Concours guy. It's just not my thing. But the reason we took this car and reintroduced it in all its glory at Pebble Beach was because its first road race on American soil in 1952 was Pebble Beach road races. So we figured, it's just, just a cool way to reintroduce the car back at its first race, the home of its first race here in California. So Pebble Beach, 2016, the car is on the lawn, after Dawn Patrol and all that stuff. And the kind of group of judges were standing around the car and looking at it, getting ready to do their thing. And the first thing they asked me is, before we get started, can you tell us about the hose? And, because it's, the car's not super shiny, it's not over restored, it's, it's got funky gaps and hand painted numbers. And I just said to him, I said, look, in my opinion, when you're doing a restoration, you have to pick the most significant point in a car's history. Most cars, it's when the car was born, as it was built and as it rolled across as it, was finished. On a race car, it's a little bit different because a race car has so many lives. Every year, or every season, every race, every lap, the car is changing and evolving, right? So you have to kind of go, okay, what point in time do I want to restore it to? And for me, knowing that this car was the first Porsche race car, first Porsche to win at Le Mans, it was technically the beginning of Porsche Motorsport that we've all grown to love and know. So I'm like, you know what? It's got to be the start of Le Mans because that's the beginning of it. Yeah. So I just analyzed every photograph of the car, every that I could find, and specifically the ones on the starting grid. And I figured, you know what? I'm going to do it right to that. So I told the judging guys at Pebble Beach, I said, so I picked that point in time exactly. And then I told them the story about the piece of hose and said it had to be there because that's the point that I focused on for restoring it. And then at that point, it was cool because then they asked me, well, other details about it, and I was able to then map out the story that's why the car isn't over restored. That's why the numbers are hand painted. That's why the dings are in the car where they are, because I really wanted to just bring this car back to what I consider the most important point in its history. This red 904 was a car that I knew as a kid. It used to be owned by a guy. He got the car in 1966 and would store it at my dad's shop. So it's a 904 that is kind of a preservation car. I mean, it's got patina and all the little age, but it was a car that Les Gunnarsson would store at my dad's shop when I was a kid. And so I have a history of sitting in it and pretending I was a race car driver. And well, Les passed away, and so one of our clients purchased the car. Then put it in my hands to just preserve it. So we did a mechanical restoration on it and got it running again. It was the first time it had run in 35 years. So now the car is back on the road. It'll probably be at Rennsport, be doing some events. Zane and I started collecting Hot Wheels and 143rd, and then Amy and Jade started pitching in, and before you know it, like every holiday, every event we go to, the collection just continues to grow. Now, a lot of people say, there's no value in them once you take them out of the box. For me, it's not a collection of value, it's a collection of inspiration. So when we're building a car in the shop, you know, a lot of times I'm putting, you know, louvers that are inspired by, you know, a spider, or, you know, the front oil cooler opening. And so what I'll do is, you know, if I'm working with one of my guys, we'll just come in and we'll talk about it, and I'll be like, you know, we're going to put some louvers on the side there, because it's so much better to have a three-dimensional object than it is a flat piece of paper to try and explain to people or inspire them to do work a certain way, you know. And so we've got drawers full of cars over there and all these, but this is actually a part of our design process, is to really also respect the heritage of Porsche, because you look at this and you think, what a diverse collection of cars, you know, all the stuff that Porsche has done, all the liveries, you know, everything from all the 550s to the 550 coupes to the, you know, 930. Yeah, I mean, you just, it's, and when you see them in miniature like this and really kind of grasp, you know, that,
This is so epic.
you know, it just helps you put it all into perspective, and
Perfect.
so yeah, so we've just kind of turned that into, you know, a piece of our work, you know. So at this end of the shop, I've got George, you know, is building little prototype stuff here. Just got through building gas tanks. So he's at this end, basically just building parts, and he'll pull, like you know, there's certain things on these cars right here that he's doing where he's building oil tanks, fitting tanks. And then as we walk down, you'll see there's 4 stations, and that's where we're doing all the metal work on the cars. So kind of our process is we disassemble the car, media blast it, and once it's disassembled, that's when we find, you know, and media blasted, that's when we find, you know, some of this work that's been done that maybe isn't, you know, for sure it's usually not up to the standard that we would do today, but it's, you know, and you look and there's, you know, tons of rust that we have to address.
And you save these cars.
We do. And
that's the best thing.
And so for me, you know, when I first started doing this stuff, you know, I used to get frustrated when I see all this brazing and all this, you know, subpar work that was done. But then maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, I realized that that subpar work kept this car from going to the crusher. Because it probably got rear-ended, and so rather than being totaled and crushed, a body shop, you know, at the time the car was probably a $3,000 car, and it was a $30 repair done to the back of it, you know? And so now the car is still on the road. And now that the values are 10, 20, 30 times, you know, that, it's like now we can, you know, now we can fix all that stuff properly, you know? It's no longer a $30,000 or $3,000 car, it's a $300,000 car, you know? So once we disassemble them and media blast them, we figure out what has to be repaired, what we're gonna fix. And so what I do first is I do the initial kind of cutting up of the cars. So, you know, I'll cut this and figure out, okay, we're gonna pull that off so that we can do the repair. You know, cut the front fenders off and determine like what areas are gonna get repaired and restored. And then from there, if we have to make a new panel, like we know we're gonna make a new nose panel or some repair panel, we'll use the power hammers to do all that stuff, get the pieces ready, and then it starts at that end and makes its way kind of through the process. So like on this car right now, all the structural work has already been done. This is a twin grill roadster. So all the structural work has been done, but now Drew has to go through and you know, repair all the exterior sheet metal and, you know, the areas underneath the skin that need to be repaired. Like a lot of body shops that you go into or restoration shops, the cars are put on a rotisserie. You know, so that like a rotisserie that picks up the car from the front and the back. The problem with these cars is that the nose and tail are always hammered on them. And it's not like an American car where you can take the grill off or, you know, you take the trunk lid off, you know. It's like, it's a unibody, so it's all one structure all the way around. So about 30 years ago, I came up with this octagon rack system when I was doing my first car. So all these cars are on the same little 4-wheel dolly in the shop, but that octagon structure can just be pulled off quickly and easily, so that whenever we need to work on the bottom or the side or whatever, we can just kind of roll it over. But if you notice, he can work on the front of the car without, and it can be rotated without having that rotisserie kind of in his way. Because again, so much of what we have to do is on the front and the back, you know, and our goal, you know, so if it had the rotisserie, you couldn't work that area. all of our tools that we use in the shop are all old school and original. So like our English wheel, you know, early 1900s. The power hammers, these are both called Yoders, early 1900s.
So cool.
And the reason is because they were just built better.
Yep.
And they're also the type of pieces of equipment that were used when these cars were being built originally. I actually got this one out of the Nethercutt Museum.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when they closed down their restoration department, Leno got some of their equipment, and then so it was just me and Leno that basically got to go and pick what we wanted. And he didn't want the, another English wheel, but there was an English wheel, a plenishing hammer, and this Yoder. And so I went and bought those.
Yeah, he didn't want the big cast iron.
He didn't, and I was like, are you kidding me? Because, you know, he got the first call, I got the second call, and I'm like, you mean Leno didn't take that shit? I'm in. But yeah, these work really good because we can build hoods and noses and doors and, you know, and then like the Echold, which is a European power hammer. We've got pole maxes. So all the equipment that we're using is, you know, of period and
How hard is it to find tools like this today?
it's tough.
Yeah.
Especially now with the internet, because if somebody has it, yeah, and they want huge money for it, you know? So this is my station here when I'm doing the cutting and sheet metal type stuff. And then all those hammers and dollies that are on my racks there, which you'll, you know, grab some footage of, those, the majority of those were handed down to me from my grandfather. So when I was learning and first, you know, smashing my fingers with hammers, they were with those. So on this side of the curtain, so once the car is painted, then the first thing that we do is we do all the undercoating and sound deadening and all that. And then once that's done, it goes to where the Super 90 is, and we do all the interior, we string the electrical, we start doing a lot of the electrical work, and then it goes onto the lift for the suspension and engine assembly. So in here, we're doing the final assembly on cars. You know, just to give you kind of a rundown on what's in here, I'll just kind of walk you through the cars. This is a car that we built for the guy that owns Colorado Springs Porsche. And so next week he's doing the Napa 750 like rally. So the car leaves tomorrow for that. So the guys are just doing a little bit of prep work on the car. We actually finished the car, we finished this car 2 years ago. So it just came back to do, you know, just a little service and kind of prep. These two cars are RS cars. So the lightweight car is going to be similar to this, except for carbon fiber exterior. So these cars are a little bit different in that they're all coilover. I basically take a 911 or a 964 and cut all the front suspension, tunnel, and rear suspension out. And then to give you kind of an idea, when you look in the engine compartment, it's a bit different because like all of this, all of that is from the whatever car we used as the donor car for the chassis. So, you know, this is full, these aren't hooked up yet, but this is full semi-active dampers. So, you know, tractive, like active suspension. Big aluminum trailing arms. You know, kind of all the cool stuff. And tons of power and big brakes. I mean, you look at the brakes on it. So like that green car is the same thing. If you look at, you know, the suspension and brakes and everything that's on there. Yeah, this car is got 2 turbos under it, which is.
What does that feel like?
Oh man, it's so nasty.
When does it kick in?
It's really, they're small little, you know, pretty small little Garrett turbos, so they spool up really quick. So it's right off the bottom. And the car only weighs 2,000 pounds, so with 400 horsepower. This is Zane, my son, right there.
How's it going? Hello.
And Carl. So yeah, so on this car, so here's how this car kind of came about and kind of the direction we're taking it. So I get a call from Ben and Nick. I was at Monterey. Oh yeah, we just bid and won this Super 90, and I'm like, okay. And they said it's all numbers matching. It's all, you know, all original parts. It looks like shit, but it's all, you know, it's all there. We're shipping it to you, and I'm like, okay, you know. So the car got to me, and initially, you know, they were hoping that you could just take it and dust it off and make it run. But there was no way, because the car had rust, the paint was falling off, all the undercoating had fallen off, but it did have all original parts and pieces still on it. So we came up with a kind of a plan for it that let's restore it, you know, full Concours-ish preservation, I guess. You know, it isn't like a Concours car. Nope. It's not a full preservation, but it's what it is let's take the car, we repaired all the rust, we repainted it in the original color, done single stage, just like it was, did all the undercoating exactly the way that it was, but then we took every part that was original to the car, like everything. Yeah. The wiring harness, every little light, headlight, bezels, turn signals, deco moldings, and Zane spent countless hours like
Send us the bill.
like doing what we can to like use that part and to not like send it out and have it all re-chromed. Like let's just see what we can do to, you know. And so every nut and bolt, you know, the mirror, I mean, there were a couple of parts that were so far gone that we had to find an alternate part, like off of one of the donor cars that was the same year, but we still used every original part. And so 95% of the pieces are original to the car. The upholstery was completely hammered. Yep. The problem is that the new carpet that you get is the wrong color. Like the new red. Do you have a sample of what the red looked like?
Love the patina on that.
Yeah, so the new carpet out of Germany, the new square weave that you get is like a cherry red, and this car had a dark red interior on it because we still had all the original pieces that we took off. So you could see as it was hidden.
It's either red with white in it, which is off, wasn't what was in it, or it's
cherry red,
or it's like a bright red.
Yeah.
So what Zane did is he took all the carpet and dyed it exactly to the color that it's supposed to be, including the binding. And so even though right now the leather looks kind of fresh, what we're gonna do, we're not gonna patina it, but we're gonna break it in, so that it starts to blend with the rest.
Looks so perfect.
With the car. Yeah, and those are the original ones off the car, right? The original grille cleaned up, the original lights. It was just, you know, so, you know, I mean, if you look at all the parts, you can
slight wear on it. It's perfect. That's how it's supposed to be.
Because in the end, we want the car to be something that you guys drive. Yeah. Right?
Well, I'll be driving.
So, so that leads me to kind of what we're doing underneath. The engine looks totally bone stock. Yep. But the carburetors inside are bigger and better.
Yeah, push rod.
Originally it was a 90 horsepower Super 90. Yep. Now it's about 140 horsepower, you know, big pistons, big heads. But when you look at it, it looks 100% bone stock. Transmission, same thing. Looks stock, but we, you know, tidied things up in there. Brakes look stock, but they've got, you know, better wheel cylinders, better linings. You know, just basically everything is just better that you can't see. Yeah. So that, because I really want this car, you know, it'll have 130, 140 horsepower, look bone stock like a preservation car that was just right out of a, you know, out of a museum.
It's gonna look.
But it'll run and drive great, you know. Yeah, here's this is all actually all the engine stuff. As soon as they've got that engine ready for the dyno, then all the hardware, all the stuff is ready for it. So what they'll do is once they're ready, then we'll come over and dress the engine, and then they can put it on the dyno. But yeah, you know, it's just cool because Zane is just like even the original fuse block, you know. Oh, sorry.
He's got a razor.
You thought it would be loud enough, you wouldn't hear him.
But yeah, so I mean, everything just cleaned up. I mean, it doesn't look like much, but there was probably 2 days,
hours.
you know, probably, you know.
Polishing.
That's insane.
When Jade was little, she was always helping me in the shop, like organizing hardware. That was like when she was little. Yeah. And then she was like, oh, you know, and then she got into where she understood the parts, and then she knew she was helping me order stuff. So every summer she was helping me do that. So we didn't think that she was gonna end up in the business. Yeah. She went to UNLV, thought she was gonna be a physical therapist, then shifted to business, and then said, hey Dad, I wanna work with you for the rest of my life. So,
well, perfect.
So I'm like, oh.
Okay. Want to start tomorrow?
Yeah. So now she does all of that. So now all the guys, instead of going to me and saying, hey, we need to order you know, shift coupler bushings, and we need to order, you know, everything. She has, I mean, everything's like dialed. She's got spreadsheets on everything. She's got it organized to where, you know, I mean, like all of our parts, because there's so many parts for these cars. I mean, but you know, she set everything up so that everything is labeled. It's all organized by area of the car. She has an inventory of it. She comes through once a week, does, you know, an inventory. You know, there's two ways to do it. You can either have a shop where these guys have to log every part as they pull it out of the drawer, which, you know, that lasts for a month and then it becomes chaos.
Yeah.
So we set it up more so that she is the one that once a week she makes her rounds. She knows where everything's at. Now the guys just use the parts they need.
They don't have to worry about
and
it.
they don't have to worry about it. So I can keep them producing, and then she worries about, you know, making sure that you know, there's 100 of those or 50, and so she has her kind of highs and low levels of everything. And since she grew up knowing the parts,
It's like,
it was a natural. Yeah.
fabulous.
So
Good for you.
anyway, so she does that part of it. You know, Zane does the restoration part of it. These guys are busy just cranking away.
That's great. You get to work with them every day.